First of all, I'd like to thank President Kimball and Mike and Deerhart for allowing me to speak today. And I'd also like to recognize my family in the front row, my wife Darlene, who's been working by my side for 23 years. My son Brian Camarillo, who graduated from CLU last year and works for the company. Courtney, who's been by his side for the last 4 years and has to deal with him because he has to deal with me. So it's all been great. I also would like to recognize my friend in the back there, Evan Edgar, from Sacramento. I also see a lot of familiar faces and friends and colleagues, so thank you very much for coming. I don't know why you want to hear me speak again, but thanks anyway. So anyway, I'm Bill Camarillo. I'm the CEO of Ackerman. I've got a lot of slides here that I'll run through, but this is about entrepreneurship, and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur at a very young age. 12 years old when I borrowed my uncle's lawnmower and his gas, and mowed lawns and made money and didn't give any of it. So way back then, I knew that the best business in the world is one in which you sell things that are free. It doesn't get any better than that. Well, a little bit better, and I'll tell you about it. But as an entrepreneur, you are going to be in for a pretty tough road. The reason we call this pioneering sustainability because pioneering and entrepreneurship go hand in hand. Pioneers take all the arrows, and settlers get all the land. Remember that. So as you're pioneering and trying to be an entrepreneur, you have to be flexible, you have to be able to adapt, you have to be able to improvise, you have to be quick on your feet, and you're going to have a strong team. So from this today, you'll get a lot of teamwork out of me. I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps. I know all about teamwork. And if you want to succeed in life, you've got to be able to depend on your partners and your friends and your family, your customers, your vendors, because business is a competition. Every potential person, even in this room, is a potential competitor. So you have to know your business, your industry sector. Starting with an education is paramount. I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur at a very young age. You can look at my educational background. It's all about business. Business is a science. It has levers. You have to be able to forecast, predict the outcomes of your decisions. If you shoot from the hip all the time, then you're going to end up with the results that you get. So as much planning as possible is extremely important. And I think what you're about to see today is not the company I started with. It's all about changing with the environment. We started with a basic premise, and today it's a completely different world, only because we've been in the right space at the right time. It hasn't been all luck. It's been about taking advantage of the opportunities presented to us in a manner in which we can move forward as a team. We started with four employees in 1993, and today we have well over 100. We started just in Ventura County 23 years ago. Today we are nationwide. So the company's expanding at a very rapid rate, but it's from the help of all of our employees, family, and friends. So Ackerman is actually a business that started in 1972. I was still in the Marine Corps. Actually, I wasn't even out of high school yet, but we ended up taking it over in 1993 as part of a company that we started, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. We are an organics recycling company, and today we recycle over 4.5 million tons of organic waste in well over 90 community cities in Southern California, and have turned it back into renewable resources, and I'll be sharing some of those with you. The company originally in 1993 started because my friends, who were high school buddies, had a problem with their own business, which was trimming trees out of high power lines for Edison. And they had a waste stream. They wanted to stop paying dumping fees and try to figure out what else they could do with it. In the early 90s, you could reprocess those tree chips and send them off to the power plants to create electricity. They burned them, created steam, created electricity, and that was an outlet. And it was a pretty good moneymaker at the time. So we started a new company called California Wood Recycling at the beginning of 1990, which is right about the inception of the recycling bill that the state passed down. AB 939. Hopefully you can see some of this stuff okay. AB 939 was a legislative bill that required 50% diversion of waste from landfills. I was 28 years old, had no idea how any of this stuff worked. I just know I had to move organic waste that we were producing. And we were being paid for it. So we were processing it, we were saving money, and we were being paid for the wood chips. So obviously, if somebody's willing to pay for something, you go figure out how to find more. So we did. We started a collection process of picking up more tree chips, and very quickly our local waste hauler said, hey, you don't need to pick it up. We'll bring it to you. And I was like, oh, even better. We'll pay you to take it. Oh, wow, even better. You're going to pay me to take it, I'm going to process it myself. Pretty good business model. So right about 1993, they decided they wanted to start the very first curbside green waste collection program in the city of Ventura. And they came to me and said, hey, could you take all the green waste from the city? And at the time, there was no limits to the amount of fuel we could send to power plants. So absolutely, we started taking the very first city, and very quickly we found out that all that grass, leaves, and plant material doesn't burn very well. So now all of a sudden, I got a pretty good sized mountain of fine material, we called it at the time, later to become compost. What was I going to do with it? So I went down to the local soils guy called Agerman over in Las Posas and Camarillo. I said, could you do anything with this material? And he said, well, let me try it. He was in the business of making virgin soil products for nurseries and landscapers and homeowners. And he bought all of his materials. None of it was recycled. It was all virgin forest products and peat mosses and things like that. So he decided to try and introduce this material into his blends and was making it work. So we just kept giving it to him. And he started to pay us for it. And then eventually we hit a slowdown in the economy in the early 90s. And he wasn't able to pay us, so I thought again, well, you can't pay me. I need this business. How about we merge the two together? And that's how we became Agerman in the early 90s. And since then, the legislation has gone faster than we can read it. After AB 939, by the year 2000, we had to divert 50% of the waste from the landfills. 30% of the waste stream is organic. Then comes along the Assembly Bill 32, which is a greenhouse gas bill, in 2006, which put a lot of pressure on 5 major industry sectors on how we're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We're all here about climate change. And whether you believe in global warming or not, the climate is changing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about climate change and CO2 and how CO2 became the common denominator on how we measure everything and how we're going to reduce CO2 to balance the environment. Started out as a green waste company, making fuel, turned into a soils company, started making energy out of the organic waste, and then these other bills come along. Assembly Bill 341, mandating commercial recycling. Then AB 1826 was just signed last week, mandatory organics commercial recycling. Another 38% of the waste stream has to come out of landfills or diverted from the landfills. Another fancy bill called AB 1594, which is an alternative daily cover bill. So in order for cities to get to 50%, they decided to take the green waste from the collection programs, because there's so much of it, process it and use it to cover the trash at night and call that diversion. We caught on to that, right, Evan? Can't do that after 2020 either, because it doesn't belong in the landfills. And then finally, SB 605 is called the Methane Mitigation Bill. We'll talk a little bit about carbon and how all this stuff plays in a role in what we're doing today. Basically says to the waste industry, if you don't remove the organics from landfills because it's producing methane, which is 85 times more potent than CO2, then we're just going to ban it. So if you had a guess how many tons of organic waste are generated in the state of California alone, I can tell you it's in the tens of millions. We're the largest organics recycler today, and we do almost 450,000 tons a year, so you can see we have a long ways to go. If you don't know anything about carbon dioxide, I'm going to give you a little bit of information on it, and I'd like you to watch a 4-minute video on the carbon cycle. So carbon dioxide is a necessary ingredient to plant life, animal life, and humans. It's all around us. I have these special glasses now, I can see it because I'm chasing carbon. Carbon is the common denominator of money, and you'll see why. So basically what's happening today is we're putting too much carbon into the atmosphere, and it's a bad thing. Too much of anything is a bad thing, even if it's a good thing. Carbon dioxide is also used in many different industries, like the food industry. You have it in your soda pop. Dry ice is solid carbon dioxide. You'll also find it in the oil industry. They use it to get oil out of the ground. In the chemical industry, they use it for cooling.
Carbon is an element that's found nearly everywhere on Earth. In the atmosphere, the soil, the ocean, and deep inside the Earth. It's also the main ingredient inside of every plant and animal, including you. Carbon doesn't stay in one place or in one form. Instead, it moves around between different parts of the Earth. This process is called the carbon cycle. Let's look at the atmosphere. Here you'll find carbon in the form of a gas called carbon dioxide. There are many ways that carbon dioxide moves into and out of the atmosphere through natural processes. For example, one way carbon dioxide is taken out of the atmosphere is through photosynthesis. Plants take carbon dioxide out of the air and use this carbon to build their leaves, stems, and roots. That means plants store carbon. When animals eat plants, they use this carbon for energy and to build their own bodies. One way that carbon dioxide gets into the atmosphere is when plants burn in a wildfire, and their carbon is converted back into carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide also goes back into the atmosphere when plants and animals die and decompose. In certain places, like swamps and the bottom of the ocean, dead plants and animals don't completely decompose, and they end up buried in layers of sediments. Over millions of years, heat and pressure turn the carbon from these plants and animals into fossil fuels, like coal, oil, and natural gas. The ocean also plays an important role in the carbon cycle. Ocean water absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but also releases carbon dioxide back into the air. All these different parts of the carbon cycle should be in balance, but people's activities are disrupting the cycle and knocking it out of balance. When we burn coal, oil, and gas to create energy, we're taking carbon from deep underground and putting it into the atmosphere faster than natural processes can take it away. After all, it took millions of years for those fossil fuels to form. Now the atmosphere is getting overloaded with carbon dioxide. In addition, when we cut down forests, that leaves fewer plants to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine the atmosphere is like a big bathtub, and carbon dioxide is the water. In the natural carbon cycle, the amount of carbon dioxide that goes into the atmosphere is balanced by the amount that goes out. It's like putting water into a bathtub, but letting the same amount go down the drain. The water level in the tub stays the same. And that's exactly what should happen with the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But what happens if you add water to the bathtub faster than it can drain away? The tub will fill up and eventually overflow. Something similar is happening in the atmosphere. People are burning lots of fossil fuels and adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere faster than it can be removed. So the atmosphere is getting overloaded with carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, which means it traps heat in the atmosphere and keeps the Earth warm. So all this extra carbon dioxide is making the Earth warmer and causing the climate to change. It's a big problem, but we can solve it. One big part of the solution will be to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions by burning less coal, oil, and gas. This will help bring the carbon cycle closer to its natural balance.
How many of you have ever seen a carbon cycle presented in that manner? So you can get what's going on with California wanting to be a leader in climate action and greenhouse gas reduction. And the purpose of AB 32 is to create a cap and trade system that uses money to change behavior. Guess what? If you're an entrepreneur, it's going to change your behavior. So you can do things two ways. You can change behavior through fear or greed. AB 939 was all about fear. If you don't meet 50% diversion, $10,000 a day fine. Got everybody's attention. They got on it. AB 32 comes along and says, we're not going to do that. We're going to create a cap and trade system. We're going to make those who pollute pay and those that don't, and sequester carbon receive money. Creates innovation, technology, science. We're going to change behavior through changing the balance that you just saw. So what economy is going to grow like crazy in California? And that's all going to be about green energy, the environment. How do we make money? I'm going to show you a few things in the AB 32 scoping plan that prove it. So again, if you're an entrepreneur, money is going to change your behavior. Go. Here's how Ackerman fits in the carbon cycle. I'll have to do that. Ackerman is in this middle section, which we call biogenic or carbon neutral. And the company is moving quickly to sequestration. Somebody's got to put that carbon back in the ground. So normal business is to use fossil fuels to live the lifestyles we live and produce more CO2 into the atmosphere than the atmosphere can balance. We're going to create a balance. We're going to try to create a company, which we've been working on for 23 years, that will help put that CO2 back in the ground through agriculture and carbon farming that are actually beneficial practices that save money and energy. So through the composting process, through the anaerobic digestion process, energy conversion process, we're using carbon neutral energy sources and not fossil fuels. Therefore, trying to replace the production of fossil fuels. Will we ever completely replace them? Absolutely not. But we need to slow them down, and through this process, we can do some of that slowdown. You can go to the California Climate Change website. I found these to be probably the most effective ways of saying how everybody plays a role in what we're doing. We have to take action. It's widespread, it's all of California, it's actually all of the world that has to play a role in what you're doing. And local roles like local governments play an important role because they're the gatekeepers with all the regulation, business permits, they have to measure and reduce the greenhouse gas, transportation, development, everything. All has to be considered when we're doing this. Business plays a big role in that in California you have to address climate change in everything you do. How your employees get around, how your business works, how you use energy, how you can be more energy efficient. Science plays an even bigger role in my opinion through biology and chemistry and engineering. It's all going to be needed to change the climate. I found this one as a business person to be the most fascinating. This was a study done by the state. And from 2009 to 2012, we had a little over 4% carbon intensity reduction, and the GDP grew. So it is working. It is changing behavior, and we are getting carbon intensity reductions and GDP growth. All those who want to move to Texas, I told them, go ahead, more for us. In business, competition, competitors, if you want to leave, leave. But last I checked, California is a pretty nice place to live. We need a little rain. I'm sure we'll get some soon, I hope. And we have great coastlines. So how did we create a solution? I found a common thread between waste diversion that was required, science and technology, and sustainable agriculture, energy, and transportation. So I basically took a wasted stream, learned how to transform it to be reusable in agriculture, energy, and transportation, reducing the need for fossil fuels. My market potential just in Southern California is 8 million tons. And that doesn't include 3.5 million tons of food waste that still keeps climbing as part of AB 1826 while they try to figure out how much actual commercial organic waste there is in the waste stream. And I told you that our company today is one of the largest processors at 450,000 tons today, servicing about 90 communities, and you can see we have a long ways to go. First of all, you're taking a feedstock or a waste stream that nobody wanted. They throw it away. What happens when you put all that back on the marketplace? That's called a supply push the last time I checked. It's going to be pretty hard to sell a commodity like just straight compost into a market that's undeveloped. So being creative and how you manage that waste stream into energy and soil products and other remediation products is going to be pretty important. So a lot of work is done at the state level to say, that's great. You put all these laws in place, you created a ban without a plan. Where's this stuff supposed to go? Been going to landfills forever. So by having science and technology catch up, and it's going pretty doggone fast, science and technology are getting better and better every day, that we think this can be done. All this has to happen by 2020. We've only got 4.5 years to go. A lot of infrastructure has to be put in place. This part of the industry is going to create well over 100,000 jobs. From a science, engineering, blue collar, tractor drivers, truck drivers, packaging people, it's administrative, it's a whole new industry developing very quickly. This is our current footprint. We started in Ventura County. We manage all 10 cities in the county's organic waste in Ventura County. It's our headquarters. It's where we all grew up. But we are expanding rapidly to Southern California, and we're just building our new facility up in Lancaster for the city of Los Angeles to help manage that waste stream out of the landfills. How do we do it? We take in food waste, green waste, wood waste. We take it into a source separation process. We decide what it's going to be from the time we receive it. From the time I say yes, from the city of Santa Monica, I'll take your material. I've already decided what it's going to be and where it's going to go. Portions of it will go to anaerobic digestion for electricity production or low carbon fuel. We're calling it renewable natural gas today, which we can put back in vehicles. Some of it will go to the cogeneration plants for fuel. Some will go to gasification for gasoline and biochar. And then the lion's share will make its way over to Ackerman production, manufacturing for one of our 250 different types of eco-friendly soil products that end up in multiple markets across the nation. Here are some of the technologies we use today. The old standard was open windrow composting. We receive the material, we clean it, we grind it, and we run it over with a big compost turner for about 20 days. And all we're trying to do is kill pathogens and get this material to age, and we're just mimicking Mother Nature. Except we're trying to do it in a month instead of 3 years. So it's a speed up process. The covered aerated static pile composting process is to mitigate issues like odors and emissions. So just like it said before, when the plant dies, it just releases its CO2. Well, we're trying to capture that in a biofilter so it doesn't go back into the atmosphere and then use the material. This is a new technology that we're liking. It's a in-vessel system, so the material is actually in those bunkers. And this big machine is running over the top of it with a big chopper, and it's keeping it all enclosed under what we call negative air pressure to keep the odors and emissions from leaving the facility. Biogas, food waste. Lots of food waste. We still can't calculate how much food waste is truly being generated. So we found technologies today that are more advanced, that are taking this food waste in a digester system just like this. We have one in our Oxnard facility, that takes about 40 to 60% grain waste with food waste. We put it in those chambers for 21 days. It creates methane gas. We're going to be creating electricity with it to run our facilities. But in the future, we're going to be using it to create transportation fuels. Same kind of digester system. One trash truck full of food waste can make enough fuel to power 4 trash trucks. And it'll be running on negative carbon fuel because we made it out of food, which was above the ground. And through that process, this can be considered negative carbon fuel. That truck is actually running down the road sucking CO2 out of the atmosphere. Not literally, but through the process and how it's calculated. Electricity, that's how we got started. We still supply one of the biggest power plants in Bakersfield with wood chips, where they create 50 megawatts of power every year. This is a gasification technology. It's basically a high temperature, 800 degrees, takes a wood chip in a vacuum, no oxygen, chars it, releases a syngas that you can turn into gasoline, and then a byproduct called biochar that we're finding to be very fascinating. That material, a sugar cube size of biochar, is the same surface area as an entire football field. So when you think of what you can do with that little material, like filter water, store microbes for the soil, store water. Today we're doing projects in turf that we can reduce water consumption, have your grass greener than it ever was with 50% less water. So you don't have to rip your lawns out. You need to do this, and we're working on that pretty quickly. Our partner is a company called Cool Planet. They're here in Camarillo also, talk about innovation and technology. They're well funded by Google, GE, ConocoPhillips, BP. Right in Camarillo, turning wood mass into gasoline and biochar. Here are just a suite of some of the products that we make. Basically 4 categories: soil amendments, soil blends, mulches in our bag product. Now I'm going to just run through quickly some of the applications of what we do and some of the customers that we work with. We do a lot of soil amending for all the strawberry growers in Ventura County and Santa Maria. We do a lot of work with all the avocado and lemon growers in Ventura County. We're very lucky in Ventura County to have as much agriculture as we still do today. We have a facility actually on Limoneira's property in and outside of Santa Paula. We've been there since 2004. We've reduced their water consumption by 30% on their 8,000 acres of land using this product. We've eliminated the erosion of their property to the rivers with this product. We've reduced their need for fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides by using Mother Nature's process to enhance what they're already doing. So they become one of the most sustainable lemon growers in the world. And I think I was once told that's helping them get an extra penny for every lemon they sell, which is the equivalent of about $5 million a year for 1 penny. So sustainability is a big deal. We supply a lot of soil medias to nurseries, flower growers, tree growers. We do a lot of high-profile landscape projects. Our products are everywhere. They're at the Getty Center, they're at Disneyland, Anaheim Stadium, a lot of new construction facilities. They're in a lot of the hotels in Vegas. If you've ever been there, all the plants and flowers on the inside are usually transplanted with an Agriment product. We provide a lot of soil amendments to golf courses and parks and schools where they're amending and treating the soil before they put in a new landscape or treat the existing. We do a lot of rooftop blends. We did a great project for the city of Beverly Hills where they had to cover a 2-acre reservoir that was concrete with 2 feet of our soil and put a park on top of it. And it was a great project with one of these types of soils. And then we have a very robust retail program. We're out there and you don't even know it. You'll see us under the EcoScraps brand at Home Depot, Lowe's, and Target. You'll see us in Walmart under a brand called Organic Harvest. We're in Dollar General. We just put a new bag program together for Whole Foods where we're now recycling all their food waste and putting a bag product back in the stores. They're helping us close the loop. We also did that with Albertsons. Ralph's, we manage all their food waste out of Compton. They have a big digester down there where they're making electricity. So from a mix and a suite of products, you can see that it takes a lot to move that volume of material. So when you look at a supply push of organics continuing to come out of the landfills, being diverted, technology and science is becoming more and more important every day. Legislation is becoming more and more important every day. Evan works out of Sacramento. He and I have been working together for 23 years. If you've ever played the game Monopoly and you're not winning, if you change the rules, that's how you change the platform. So you got to monitor what's going on. And if you don't want to be involved on the legislative side, then you'll just get dealt the hand you get dealt. So you can be out in front of it, pay attention, be involved, and help shape the industry. So that's what Agriman does today. I believe that organics are a gift from the sun, energy, and soil equation. It's not a waste stream, it's a misplaced resource, and it's our job to find a way to transform it, reuse it again and again and again until we put it back in the dirt. So that's pretty much my story.